In recent years, foodborne outbreaks have been prominently in the news. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that 48 million people get sick, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die from foodborne diseases each year in the United States. Even though foodborne illnesses seem to increase every year, people have been getting sick from adulterated food since the beginning of time. In the mid-1800s, distilleries commonly sold leftover fermented grains from beer production as cattle feed. The cows that ate the swill produced thin, bluish milk with little nutritional value. Chalk and molasses were added to milk to make it appear creamy and yellow. Dairies that sold swill milk had unsanitary conditions at their stables and permanently confined cattle, which led to multiple health hazards. This controversy led to one of the first investigations in the United States linked to adulterated food. An investigation led by the Academy of Medicine uncovered the conditions in swill dairies and established their link to the increased infant mortality in the city. Media reports and public outrage prompted New York State to pass a law in 1862 banning the sale of impure, adulterated, or unwholesome milk, and making it illegal to keep cows in crowded or unhealthy conditions. Federal food safety regulations started in 1906 when President Theodore Roosevelt signed two bills, the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. The Pure Food and Drug Act established what would eventually become the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The Meat Inspection Act was prompted by Upton Sinclair's 1905 novel, The Jungle, which detailed the meatpacking industry in Chicago. That law set sanitary conditions for butchering and led to the United States Department of Agriculture. The 1924 raw oyster outbreak in New York City provides an early example of supply chain tracing successfully applied to an outbreak investigation involving fresh foods across multiple states. Public health officials identified that oysters exposed to polluted water were responsible for typhoid fever. This outbreak led to various research investigations and the National Shellfish Sanitation Program in 1925. The first federal traceability law was enacted in 1930, the Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act. Other relevant governmental actions included revising the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act in 1938, the Poultry Products Inspection Act in 1957, and the National Salmonella Surveillance Program in 1962. The Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points Program was developed as a private initiative in 1963. NASA and Pillsbury created the HACCP system to prevent astronauts from becoming ill in space. HACCP introduced rigorous standards, precise analysis, and reliable measurement to food safety systems. Despite regulatory actions, outbreaks continued to occur. A New York banker was killed by botulism toxin found in a can of Bon Vivant Vichyssoise soup in 1971. As a result, the FDA ordered the company to recall its entire stock of products, 1.4 million cans containing 90 varieties of soups and sauces, worth $60,000. An FDA investigation found improper cooking, poor equipment maintenance, and incomplete records to be the causes of the outbreak. Within a month of the recall, Bon Vivant filed for bankruptcy and changed its name to Moore & Company. As a result of this outbreak, the FDA established low-acid canned food regulations in 1974 and acidified food regulations in 1979. A few decades later, the Washington State Department of Health began investigating an unusually high incidence of hemolytic uremic syndrome among children in Seattle. The outbreak was caused by Jack-in-the-Box hamburgers contaminated with E. Coli O157 H7. This outbreak caused national panic and almost led to the end of the fast food chain. The Food Safety Inspection Service declared E. coli O157 H7 an adulterant in raw meat after the outbreak, and its presence rendered it unfit for sale. In 1996, the USDA published the Pathogen Reduction and HACCP Systems Megareg Final Rule that provided new guidelines on federal meat inspections and mandated implementation of HACCP systems. The CDC launched PulseNet in the wake of the Jack-in-the-Box outbreak. PulseNet is a national surveillance system consisting of a network of laboratories throughout the United States that rapidly detects clusters of foodborne disease outbreaks via DNA fingerprints. Industry trade associations and the FDA published Good Agricultural Practices Guidelines in 1997 and 1998 in response to growing concerns about produce safety. To improve record-keeping standards in the food supply, the Traceability Task Force published Traceability Best Practices in 2004. Additionally, the FDA published the Bioterrorism Act Final Rule, passed in the wake of the 9/11 attacks. The act was designed to improve the country's ability to prevent and respond to public health emergencies. In September 2006, the FDA announced a nationwide E. coli outbreak associated with bagged baby spinach. For fear of E. coli contamination, all bagged spinach was recalled nationwide. Later that month, the FDA announced that all spinach implicated in the outbreak had been traced back to a company in California. Investigations discovered that pre-harvest spinach contamination was caused by cattle roaming near spinach fields. After this outbreak, industry associations published commodity-specific leafy greens guidance, and the Produce Traceability Initiative was established. The 2008 Salmonella outbreak linked to processed peanuts caused one of the largest food recalls in U.S. history. More than 3,900 products from over 200 companies were recalled following contamination at 2 Peanut Corporation of America processing plants. Both plants were intermediary processors that sold ingredients to other companies. Stuart Parnell, former PCA executive, was sentenced to life behind bars after knowingly shipping adulterated food. In 2009, the FDA introduced the Reportable Food Registry, a tool that helps the FDA better protect public health by tracking patterns and inspecting potential hazardous foods. Another case of food executives being involved in criminal charges included the 2010 Decoster Egg Outbreak. Austin Decoster and his son faced charges stemming from a salmonella outbreak caused by their Iowa egg farms in 2010. This outbreak was responsible for a recall of more than 500 million eggs. Statistics used to account for salmonella infections in the U.S. suggest that more than 62,000 people may have been infected with the bacteria due to the eggs. In January 2011, President Obama signed the Food Safety Modernization Act, described as the most important food safety advance in 70 years. The Food Safety Modernization Act focused on the prevention of food safety issues rather than relying on reacting to problems after they occur. That same year, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment notified the CDC about cases of listeriosis. After further investigation, the Listeria monocytogenes outbreak traced back to Rocky Ford brand cantaloupes from Jensen Farms in Colorado. The FDA conducted inspections to identify causes of contamination and found Listeria strains on the packing house and equipment. Poor facility design, such as water pooling near packaging equipment and hard-to-clean equipment, may have contributed to the outbreak. By 2015, the FDA finalized several regulations to implement the FDA Food Safety Modernization Act. One of them was the Produce Safety Rule, which was the first ever mandatory federal standard for growing, harvesting, packing, and holding of fresh produce. Other regulations included the Preventive Controls for Human and Animal Food Final Rule. In 2018, the FDA finalized regulation for the Food Defense Rule, a series of strategies to protect food against intentional adulteration as part of FSMA implementation. Food safety has come a long way over the past 150 years. New technologies, science-based information, civil litigation, and the media coverage that accompanies it have speeded changes in food safety reform. Additionally, the efforts from private initiatives and federal agencies have produced guidance and regulation and spread information for a stronger food safety system. Progress has been made over the years. However, the food industry needs to remain vigilant of hazards in the new era of food safety.